Hi there. This is Grace's algebra project. So my equation was k squared minus 11k plus 30 equals 0. So my first method of solving this is the quadratic formula. So the quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So once I plug in all my values, I get 11 plus or minus the square root of 121 minus 120 all over 2. And once I simplify that, I get x equals 11 plus or minus 1 over 2. Now I have to split that equation into two different equations, which are k equals 11 plus 1 over 2 and k equals 11 minus 1 over 2. So solving the plus equation, I get 12 over 2, and that means x is equal to 6. And solving the minus equation, I get 10 over 2, which means x is also equal to 5. So the solutions to this equation are x equals 5 and x equals 6. My next method of solving this equation is completing the square. To complete the square, you have to subtract or add the c term from both sides and then find out what number would make it a square. But the problem with this equation in completing the square is that the b term is odd, so you cannot complete the square, and completing the square is not possible. My next method of solving this is graphically. Now for this part, the paper is in the way, so you can't see what I'm doing, but what I am doing is solving for the line of symmetry. The line of symmetry equation is x equals negative b over 2a. So once I plug in all my values, I get x equals 11 over 2. And that is equal to 5.5. So the line of symmetry is 5.5. Now after that, I am going to plug in 5.5 to my quadratic equation. What I'm writing now is that the y-intercept is 30 because the c term is always the y-intercept. I'm figuring out stuff. Once I plug in all my values and I multiply and everything, I get 59.25 minus 605 plus 30 is equal to 0. What am I doing? And once I combine all of those values, the y value, not the vertex past Grace, the y value is 515.25 or 75. I cannot see it from here. Yes, I wanted to do what you did, graduate to join the revolution. He looked at me like I was stupid. I'm not stupid. So how'd you do it? How'd you graduate so fast? It was my parents' dying wish before they passed. You're an orphan. Of course, I'm an orphan. God, now I realize now that this part does not make sense that I just did. Because, I mean, as you will see later, the graphical thing that I am about to do, the vertex is closer to 0. So, I don't know how I solved this equation getting 515. But clearly that's not right. So now I'm creating a coordinate grid, and I am finding out what intervals I should use, and the intervals that I am going to use are by tens, and right now I'm making a mistake. So to find out the values for all of the independent variables, I created a table of values. So for x equals 1, I plugged in the value x equals 1, and I got y equals 19. And I kept doing that until I came up with my equation, which is y equals 0. And so the values that I get, well, x equals 5 and x equals 6. So, when solving this, I get, again, x equals 5 and x equals 6. Well, or x equals 6. So my next method of solving this equation is by factoring. So the method that I'm going to use is the box method, where you basically just solve. And so to find out what factors multiplied together to get 30 and added together to get negative 11. So in my table of values, I got 15 and 2, 5 and 6, negative 5 and 6, negative 5 and negative 6, negative 15 and negative 2. Now the only values that made sense there were negative 5 and negative 6, because both of those added together get negative 11. So my two binomials that I will multiply together to get this quadratic equation will be k minus 5 and k minus 6. And so to find the solutions, or the y-intercepts, which are the solutions, you have to set one of the binomials equal to 0. One or both. One and both, to find both of the solutions. So when I do that, the first one is k minus 5. So k minus 5 equals 0. K equals 5. And the second one, k minus 6 equals 0. Once you solve that, k is equal to positive 6. So once again, the solutions to this equation are k equals 5 and k equals 6.